Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a quick note. Today, join us as we unravel the life, artistry, and intellectual brilliance of the Renaissance polymath, Leonardo da Vinci. From breathtaking paintings to groundbreaking scientific inquiries, Leonardo's legacy continues to shape our understanding of genius. So, fasten your seatbelts as we take a quick note on the multifaceted genius of this iconic figure. And, if you find this journey as fascinating as we do, remember to hit the like button and subscribe for more captivating explorations. Leonardo da Vinci, or simply Leonardo from Vinci as he's known in Italy, was born on April 15, 1452, in Anciano, near Vinci. He passed away on May 2, 1519, in Cloux, France. Leonardo was not just a painter, but also a draftsman, sculptor, architect, and engineer. He was the embodiment of the Renaissance humanist ideal, demonstrating a level of skill and intellect that stood out even among his talented contemporaries. Two of his most famous works, The Last Supper, 1495–98, and Mona Lisa, around 1503–19, are considered some of the most iconic and influential paintings of the Renaissance. But Leonardo's genius didn't stop at painting. His notebooks are a testament to his scientific curiosity and innovative thinking that were way ahead of his time. What made Leonardo truly special was his insatiable curiosity. He was driven by an unending desire for knowledge, which influenced his entire approach to life and work. Although he was naturally gifted as an artist, Leonardo believed that his eyes were his most important tool for gaining knowledge. To him, seeing was the most immediate and certain way to understand and experience the world. Leonardo's approach to observing the world around him, or knowing how to see as he put it, became the central theme of his studies. His creativity was not confined to his art alone. He used his incredible powers of observation and his exceptional drawing skills to study nature itself, bridging the gap between art and science in a way that few others have managed to do. Life and works. Early period, Florence. Leonardo da Vinci's life began under unusual circumstances. Born to parents who weren't married, his father, Ser Piero, was a respected notary and landlord in Florence, while his mother, Caterina, was a young peasant woman who soon married an artisan. Despite these circumstances, Leonardo was raised as a legitimate son on his father's estate, where he received basic education in reading, writing, and arithmetic. Leonardo was largely self-taught when it came to traditional learning. He didn't seriously study Latin, an essential language of education at the time, until much later. Similarly, he only started to delve into higher mathematics, like advanced geometry and arithmetic, when he was around 30. However, Leonardo's artistic talents started to show at an early age. When he was around 15, his father, who had a strong standing in the Florence community, arranged an apprenticeship for him with the artist Andrea del Verrocchio. In Verrocchio's famous workshop, Leonardo received comprehensive training in various domains, including painting, sculpture, and technical mechanical arts. He also spent time working in the neighboring workshop of artist Antonio Pollaiuolo. In 1472, at the age of 20, Leonardo was welcomed into the Painters' Guild of Florence. However, he continued to work in his teacher's workshop for another 5 years before embarking on his independent career in Florence in 1481. Despite his young age, Leonardo showed a deep interest in technical matters. This was evident from the numerous excellent pen and pencil drawings from this period, including technical sketches of pumps, military weapons, and mechanical devices. These sketches provide a glimpse of Leonardo's innovative mind, even at the start of his career. First Milanese period, 1482–99. In 1482, at the age of 30, Leonardo made a surprising move. He left his hometown of Florence, where he had just received his first significant commissions, and moved to Milan to serve the city's duke. The unfinished painting Adoration of the Magi for the monastery of San Donato a Scopo, and an altar painting for the St. Bernard Chapel in the Palazzo della Signoria, which he never started, were the projects he left behind. This decision suggests that Leonardo had more profound reasons for leaving Florence. Perhaps the sophisticated Neoplatonism spirit prevalent in the Medici-ruled Florence did not align with Leonardo's experiential approach to knowledge. The stricter, more academic environment of Milan might have appealed to him more. Additionally, the allure of Duke Ludovico Sforza's dazzling court and the exciting projects in Milan were likely irresistible. Leonardo spent 17 productive years in Milan, serving until the Duke's downfall in 1499. He was officially registered in the royal household as the painter and engineer of the Duke. Leonardo's refined yet reserved demeanor and his elegant manners fit in well with the courtly lifestyle. His skills and talents were highly valued, keeping him constantly engaged as a painter, sculptor, and designer of court festivals. Beyond his artistic contributions, Leonardo was often called upon for technical advice in areas like architecture, fortifications, and military matters. He also served as a hydraulic and mechanical engineer. Throughout his life, Leonardo was known for setting ambitious goals for himself, and if we look at his work during this period, or his entire life, it's as if he was composing an extraordinarily grand yet unfinished symphony. During his 17-year stint in Milan, Leonardo completed 6 paintings. Contemporary sources suggest that he was commissioned for 3 additional works, but these either disappeared over time or were never started. Between 1483 and 1486, Leonardo worked on the altar painting the Virgin of the Rocks. This project sparked a decade-long legal dispute between Leonardo and the group that commissioned it, the Confraternity of the Immaculate Conception. The dispute led Leonardo to create a second version of the work around 1508. One of Leonardo's most renowned works from this period is the monumental wall painting The Last Supper, 1495–98, created for the refectory of the monastery of Santa Maria del Grazie. Another notable work from this period is the decorative ceiling painting, 1498, he created for the Sala dell'Arsa in the Milan Castello Sforzesco. While in Milan, Leonardo also embarked on a significant sculptural project, which is believed to be the primary reason he was invited to the city. The project was a monumental equestrian statue in bronze, intended to honor Francesco Sforza, the founder of the Sforza dynasty. Leonardo dedicated 12 years, with some interruptions, to this project. The clay model of the horse was publicly displayed in 1493 during the marriage of Emperor Maximilian to Bianca Maria Sforza. Plans were made to cast the colossal figure, which was intended to stand 16 feet, 5 meters, high. However, the impending threat of war derailed the project. The metal that had been prepared for the statue was instead used to make cannons. The fall of Ludovico Sforza in 1499 further sealed the fate of this ambitious project, which could have been the grandest monument of the 15th century. The war that followed reduced the clay model to ruins. As a master of his craft, Leonardo ran a large workshop in Milan, where he mentored a number of apprentices and students. Some of his pupils included notable names such as Giovanni Antonio Boltraffio, Ambrogio de Predis, Bernardino de Conti, Francesco Napolitano, Andrea Solari, Marco Doggiono, and Salai. However, the specific roles that these associates played in Leonardo's workshop remain somewhat unclear. This has led to debates about the so-called apocryphal works, artworks on which Leonardo is believed to have collaborated with his assistants. To this day, scholars have not reached a consensus regarding the attribution of these works. It remains a mystery as to which pieces were the result of Leonardo's own brush, and which saw the involvement of his students. Second Florentine period, 1500–08, of Leonardo da Vinci. In late 1499 or early 1500, around the time when French forces entered Milan victoriously, Leonardo left the city. He was in the company of mathematician Lucas Pacioli. After a brief visit to Mantua in February 1500, he went to Venice in March. Here, the governing council sought his advice on defending against a threatened Turkish invasion in Friuli. Leonardo suggested they prepare to flood the area under threat. After Venice, he returned to Florence, where he was welcomed warmly and celebrated as a distinguished native son. In Florence, he became an architectural expert on a committee assessing damages to the Church of San Francesco al Monte. He stayed with the Servite order in the cloister of Santissima Annunziata. It appears that during this time, Leonardo focused more on mathematical studies than painting. However, in the summer of 1502, drawn by his unquenchable curiosity and thirst for new experiences, Leonardo left Florence again. He started serving Cesare Borgia, the infamous son of Pope Alexander VI, as a senior military architect and general engineer. Borgia, who was then the commander-in-chief of the papal army, was known for his ruthless ambition to control the papal states of Romagna and the Marches. At the age of 27, Borgia was at the height of his power and was arguably the most intimidating figure of his time. Leonardo, being twice his age, must have been intrigued by Borgia's character. For 10 months, Leonardo surveyed Borgia's territories, sketching city plans and topographical maps in the process. This work laid the foundation for modern cartography. During his time at Borgia's court, Leonardo also crossed paths with Niccolò Machiavelli, who was there as a political observer for the city of Florence. In the spring of 1503, Leonardo da Vinci returned to Florence to consult on a project that aimed to divert the Arno River to cut off Pisa, then under Florentine siege, from the sea. The plan, however, turned out to be impractical. Still, this venture sparked Leonardo's interest in an old plan from the 13th century to construct a large canal bypassing the unnavigable stretch of the Arno, thus connecting Florence with the sea. Leonardo brought this idea to life through a series of studies. He combined his artistic talent in landscape sketches with precise measurements of the terrain to create a map showing the canal's route through the mountain pass of Serravalle. While the canal was never built, its planned path was later used for the construction of an express highway from Florence to the sea. In the same year, Leonardo was commissioned to paint a colossal mural for the council hall in Florence's Palazzo Vecchio. This historical scene, titled The Battle of Anghiari, was planned to be twice as large as the Last Supper. However, just like Michelangelo's Battle of Cascina, Leonardo's painting remained unfinished. In these years, Leonardo also painted his most famous artwork, the Mona Lisa, circa 1503–19. This second period in Florence was also a time of intense scientific exploration for Leonardo. He conducted dissections at the Santa Maria Nuova Hospital, and embarked on a comprehensive study of the human body's structure and function. He observed birds intending to write a treatise on their flight. Leonardo's hydrological studies extended to research on water's physical properties, particularly the laws of currents, which he compared to air. This research was collated in the Codex Hammer, formerly known as the Leicester Codex, now owned by Bill Gates. Second Milanese period, 1508–13. In the spring of 1506, Charles d'Amboise, the French leader in Milan, reached out to the authorities in Florence. He had a special request: could the famous artist Leonardo make a trip to Milan? The Florentine leaders agreed, and Leonardo set off, leaving his grand work, The Battle of Anghiari, incomplete. It's been speculated that Leonardo's failed experiments with new painting techniques led him to abandon this epic mural. How else could we explain him walking away from such a crucial project? As the winter of 1507–08 rolled around, Leonardo journeyed to Florence. There, he lent his artistic genius to the sculptor Giovanni Francesco Rusticci, helping him perfect his bronze statues for the Florence Baptistery. After this, Leonardo decided to make Milan his new home. In Milan, Leonardo found himself surrounded by admiration and respect from his generous benefactors, Charles d'Amboise and King Louis XII. His role was primarily to lend his unique perspective on architectural matters. We can see his influence in the plans for Charles' Palace Villa, and it's thought that he also made some initial sketches for a prayer room for the Church of Santa Maria alla Fontana, another project funded by Charles. Leonardo also took a keen interest in an old project that the French leader had reignited, a river route that would connect Milan with Lake Como. However, during his second stint in Milan, Leonardo didn't create much as a painter. Instead, he focused on teaching, gathering a group of students around him. His older students, Bernardino da Conti and Salai, returned to his studio, and new faces emerged, including Cesare da Sesto, Gianpitrino, Bernardino Luini, and Francesco Melzi, a young nobleman who would become Leonardo's closest friend and companion, until the end of his life. During this time, Leonardo was presented with an exciting opportunity. Gian Giacomo Triviulzio, a victorious marshal of the French army and a sworn enemy of Ludovico Sforza, had triumphantly returned to Milan. He approached Leonardo with a unique request, to design his tomb. The plan was to create an equestrian statue to be placed in the funeral chapel that Triviulzio had donated to the Church of San Lazzaro Maggiore. Leonardo spent years preparing for this grand project, and many of his detailed sketches from this time have survived. However, Triviulzio eventually decided to abandon the ambitious plan in favor of a simpler one. This was the second time that Leonardo had to abandon a sculpting project halfway. Meanwhile, Leonardo's scientific pursuits were thriving. He began working with Marcantonio della Torre, a renowned anatomist from Pavia, which brought a new depth to his studies in anatomy. Leonardo envisioned a comprehensive work that would not only include detailed illustrations of the human body and its organs, but also delve into comparative anatomy and physiology. He even planned to complete his anatomical manuscript during the winter of 1510–11. But Leonardo's interests extended beyond the human body. His notebooks from this period are filled with studies in mathematics, optics, mechanics, geology, and botany. His research was guided by a core belief that all forms in nature, both living and non-living, are shaped by fundamental mechanical forces of force and motion. Moreover, he believed that these forces operate under orderly, harmonious laws. Last year's 1513–19 of Leonardo da Vinci. In 1513, some political stuff happened. Basically, the French got kicked out of Milan. This made the now 60-year-old Leonardo move again. At the end of the year, he went to Rome with his students Melzi and Salai, along with some helpers. He hoped to find a job there through his friend Giuliano de' Medici, who was the brother of the new pope. Leo X. Giuliano gave him a bunch of rooms in his place, the Belvedere, in the Vatican. He also gave Leonardo a good amount of money every month, but he didn't get any big projects. Leonardo stayed in Rome for 3 years, a time when lots of artists were doing cool stuff, but he felt disappointed. He kept a low profile, working on math and technical experiments or checking out old buildings in the city. Leonardo might have spent time with his friend Bramante, but Bramante died in 1514, and there's no record of Leonardo hanging out with other artists in Rome. He worked on a project for Giuliano de' Medici in 1514, and he made sketches for a big house in Florence for the Medici, who came back to power in 1512. But, sadly, the house was never built. Feeling a bit stuck, at 65, Leonardo said yes to an invitation from the young King Francis I of France. So, at the end of 1516, he left Italy forever with his most devoted student, Melzi. Leonardo spent the last 3 years of his life in a small house near the king's summer palace in France. He proudly had the title of first painter, architect, and engineer to the king. The king treated him really well, like an honored guest, and even though Leonardo didn't paint much in France, he worked on his scientific studies and treatises. He drew up plans for a palace and garden in Romorantin, but they had to stop because of malaria in the area. Leonardo passed away at Clou and was buried in the palace church of St. Florentin. The church got torn down later, so we don't know where his grave is now. His student Melzi inherited all of Leonardo's art and science stuff. Art and accomplishment. Painting and drawing. Leonardo da Vinci didn't paint a ton. We've got only about 17 paintings that we're sure are his, and some of them aren't even finished. 2 really important pieces, the Battle of Anghiari and the Leda, are only known through copies because he never completed them. But even with this small number, Leonardo made a huge mark. Giorgio Vasari, in his famous book Lives of the Most Eminent Italian Architects, Painters and Sculptors, called Leonardo the founder of the High Renaissance. His works have stood the test of time and are considered masterpieces in painting. Lots of people, from Vasari to Peter Paul Rubens to Johann Wolfgang von Goethe to Eugène Delacroix, have praised Leonardo for his ability to express emotions in his art. It's not just about technique and telling a story, he could capture an underlying feeling. You can see this talent in the angel he painted for Verrocchio's Baptism of Christ, around 1472–75. Leonardo made the angel look natural, relaxed, and gave it a mysterious look that both connects with the surroundings and seems inwardly focused. In the landscape part of the same painting, he did something new with what he called nature experienced, making the background look kind of hazy, like you're seeing it through mist. In the painting the Benoit Madonna created between 1478 and 1480, Leonardo did something cool. He took a traditional type of picture and gave it a fresh, charming vibe. He made the child Jesus reach for a flower in Mary's hand in a sweet and tender way. It's all about creating a new mood and expression. Then there's the portrait Ginevra de Benci from around 1474 to 1478. Leonardo went down a different road with portrait painting here. He played with the idea of nearness and distance and did an awesome job with light and texture. It's like he opened up new possibilities for how portraits could look. In the unfinished painting of Saint Jerome from around 1482, Leonardo showed his deep understanding of anatomy. Saint Jerome looks really thin, and it's kind of sobering. But Leonardo's mastery of gestures and facial expressions gives Saint Jerome this incredible look of intense sorrow. Leonardo's first big creation with lots of figures is Adoration of the Magi from around 1482. Even though he didn't finish it, the painting shows us a lot about how he worked. He used thin layers of paint to build up the scene, creating a smooth transition from light to shadow, something he called sfumato. The main part with the Virgin and Child, and the other groups around them are clearly separated but still connected. It's like a masterclass in composition. The different figures in the painting, especially the praying shepherds, show various levels of amazement. It's not just about the technique, it's about capturing both physical and spiritual motion, as Leonardo put it. Leonardo's painting The Virgin of the Rocks in its first version, made between 1483 and 1486, is like a showcase of his pure painting style. It tells the story of the not-so-common meeting between young John the Baptist and Jesus, who's coming back from Egypt. What makes this painting so special is how Leonardo used everything in his toolbox to make it feel like a vision. The soft colors, thanks to a technique called sfumato, give it a dreamy quality. The cave is kind of dark, but the figures coming out of it are bathed in light. Everyone in the scene is calm, and there's this meaningful gesture where the angel, the only one facing us, points to John as the go-between for the Son of God and humanity. All of these elements, in a thoughtful and organized way, come together to make a powerful and expressive work of art. Last Supper of Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo's Last Supper, painted between 1495 and 1498, is super famous and considered one of the most iconic paintings globally. The scene is strikingly simple yet powerful in its composition. The intensity comes from the sharp contrast in the attitudes of the 12 disciples compared to Christ. Leonardo captured a tense moment during the Passover meal when Jesus drops the bombshell, "One of you will betray me." The disciples, not understanding what's about to happen, are all worked up, while Christ, fully aware of his divine mission, sits alone in a serene and transformed state. The only other figure in on the secret is Judas, both part of and excluded from the group, becoming a lonely, guilty figure in the company. Leonardo's meticulous portrayal of individuals, diverse disciple temperaments conveyed through gestures, expressions and poses, and the dramatic yet sublime theme treatment establish a standard of excellence in his work. Many painters in later generations, including big names like Rubens and Rembrandt, were influenced by Leonardo's composition and storytelling. Even the writer Goethe drew inspiration for his best descriptive prose from the Last Supper. Widely reproduced and iconic, it has become a celebrated part of our shared human heritage, remaining one of the world's outstanding paintings today. Even though The Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci is super famous, there are some technical issues with how it was made. Leonardo was kind of unsure about the best technique to use. Instead of the usual fresco painting, which is done on fresh plaster and needs quick and continuous work, he chose a different method. He used tempera on a base that he mixed himself, applying it directly to the stone wall. Unfortunately, this approach didn't work out well, and the base started coming off the wall. Damage started showing up by the early 16th century, and things got worse over time. By the middle of the century, people were calling the painting a ruin. Efforts to fix it up didn't help much, and it wasn't until after World War II that modern restoration techniques were used to stop the decay. A big restoration project started in 1980 and finished in 1999 made the painting look amazing again. However, it also revealed that very little of the original paint was still there. So, while the restoration brought back the brilliance of the artwork, a lot of the original paint was lost over the years. Art and Science, The Notebooks. Between 1490 and 1495, Leonardo da Vinci kicked off a major phase of his life as both a writer, treatise author, and a creative force. During this time, his interests in both art and science started to take shape, creating a kind of dualism that fueled his creativity in both areas. He laid the foundation for four main themes that would dominate his work: a treatise on painting, one on architecture, a book about mechanics, and a broadly outlined work on human anatomy. During this time, he initiated his exploration of geophysics, botany, hydrology, and aerology, all contributing to his vision of visible cosmology, a distant objective he aspired to attain. Leonardo prioritized hands-on experience, shaping his science of painting. While artists like Alberti and Della Francesca explored painting's mathematical aspects, emphasizing perspective and proportion, Leonardo advanced these ideas. He believed that a painter, armed with keen powers of perception and the ability to vividly represent them, was uniquely qualified to gain true knowledge. According to him, painters could closely observe the world and then accurately reproduce it. This belief led Leonardo to an ambitious plan, to observe every object in the visible world, understand its form and structure, and depict it exactly as it exists. During his initial years in Milan, Leonardo da Vinci started creating his earliest notebooks. His process involved making quick sketches of his observations on loose sheets or small paper pads that he kept in his belt. Afterward, he would organize these sketches by theme and record them in a systematic order within the notebooks. Throughout his career, he maintained this practice, resulting in thousands of densely written pages filled with abundant illustrations, the most extensive written legacy any painter has ever left. Out of over 40 codices mentioned in contemporary sources, 21 have survived. Some of these codices include notebooks that were initially separate but are now bound together, totaling 32 preserved volumes. Additionally, there are several large bundles of documents, including the Codex Atlanticus in the Biblioteca Ambrosiana in Milan. Named for its size, it was assembled by the sculptor Pompeo Leone in the late 16th century. Its companion volume found its way to the English crown in the 17th century, and is now in the Royal Library at Windsor Castle. Furthermore, the Arundel manuscript in the British Museum in London contains numerous fascicles by Leonardo on various themes. These notebooks and documents provide valuable insights into Leonardo's thoughts, observations, and creative processes. Leonardo da Vinci's use of mirror writing is a distinctive feature in his notes and sketches. As a left-handed individual, mirror writing came naturally to him, even though the reason for this choice remains uncertain. Despite its uniqueness, his script can be easily read with the help of a mirror, as attested by his contemporaries. It's essential to recognize that his mirror writing wasn't a form of secret communication but rather a stylistic preference. Even in carefully crafted calligraphy, Leonardo consistently employed mirror writing throughout his notebooks. This suggests that, despite addressing an imaginary reader in his writings, he never felt the need to prioritize conventional handwriting for easy communication. His writings should be seen as preliminary stages of works intended for eventual publication, which Leonardo never completed. In a sentence in the margin of one of his late anatomy sketches, he even urges his followers to ensure that his works are printed. Another unique aspect in Leonardo's writings is the relationship between words and pictures in the notebooks. Leonardo passionately pursued a language that was both clear and expressive. The vibrancy and richness of his vocabulary resulted from intense independent study, making a significant contribution to the evolution of scientific prose in the Italian vernacular. Despite his eloquence, Leonardo consistently gave absolute precedence to illustration over the written word in his teaching method. In Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks, a distinctive approach emerges where the drawing does not merely illustrate the text, instead, the text serves as an explanation for the picture. This inversion of the traditional relationship between text and illustration reflects Leonardo's unique teaching method. He prioritized visual representation, establishing his own principle of graphic representations that he termed dimostrazione or demonstrations. This approach, characterized by the use of images to convey information, can be considered a precursor to modern scientific illustration. Leonardo's pioneering work in this realm laid the foundation for how information is visually communicated in scientific contexts today. The Mona Lisa, and other works of Leonardo da Vinci. During his time in Florence between 1500 and 1506, Leonardo da Vinci initiated three remarkable works that not only affirmed his reputation but elevated it to new heights: The Virgin and Child with Saint Anne, circa 1503-19, Mona Lisa, circa 1503-19, and the Battle of Anghiari, unfinished, begun in 1503. Even before its completion, The Virgin and Child with Saint Anne received high praise from the people of Florence. The group's monumental three-dimensional quality, along with the calculated effects of dynamism and tension in the composition, made it a model that inspired both classicists and mannerists alike. The work showcased Leonardo's ability to capture the essence of a scene and left a lasting impact on the artistic trends of the time. The Mona Lisa, painted by Leonardo da Vinci, set a benchmark for all future portraits. This iconic painting, now known to likely depict Lisa del Giocondo, the wife of the Florentine merchant Francesco del Giocondo, also goes by the alternative title La Gioconda. The artwork features a half-body portrait of the subject against a distant landscape backdrop. Despite employing what seems like a simple formula for portraiture, Leonardo achieved an expressive synthesis between the sitter and the landscape, placing this work among the most popular and analyzed paintings of all time. Using sfumato, a technique that creates soft, smoky transitions, Leonardo crafted sensuous curves in the woman's hair and clothing, mirroring the undulating valleys and rivers in the background. The overall harmony in the painting, especially evident in the sitter's subtle smile, reflects Leonardo's belief in the cosmic connection between humanity and nature. This masterpiece serves as a lasting testament to Leonardo's visionary genius. Notably, the young Raphael sketched the work in progress, and it served as a model for his own painting, the Portrait of Maddalena Doni, circa 1506. Leonardo da Vinci's art of expression reached a pinnacle in the unfinished masterpiece, the Battle of Anghiari. Preserved preliminary drawings provide insight into Leonardo's lofty conception of the science of painting, wherein he applied the principles of equilibrium explored in his studies of mechanics. The focal point, the center of gravity, in the artwork is the group of flags fiercely contested by all the horsemen. Leonardo captured a moment where the intense and expansive movement of the swirling riders appears momentarily frozen. Leonardo's deep studies in anatomy and physiology left a significant mark on his representation of both human and animal bodies, especially when they are in a state of excitement. His extensive observations and descriptions of the baring of teeth and puffing of lips as indicators of anger in both animals and humans informed the dynamic portrayal in the Battle of Anghiari. On the painted canvas, both rider and horse, their features distorted, share a remarkably similar expression, showcasing Leonardo's keen understanding of the physical and emotional aspects of his subjects. The Battle of Anghiari, with its highly imaginative elements, transcends the confines of historical representation and places the event in a timeless realm. The cartoon and copies depicting the main scene of the battle exerted a lasting influence on subsequent artists. As the sculptor Benvenuto Cellini remarked, these works became the school of the world. The composition of the Battle of Anghiari has left an indelible mark on many painters throughout history. In the 17th century, Rubens created an impressive copy of the scene based on Leonardo's now lost cartoon, and in the 19th century, Delacroix was among the artists influenced by its composition. The enduring impact of Leonardo's innovative approach to depicting dynamic and dramatic scenes continues to resonate across centuries and artistic movements. During this period, it is believed that Leonardo painted the Salvator Mundi, circa 1500, Savior of the World, a painting that was rediscovered in the early 21st century in the United States. While some experts initially questioned the attribution of the piece to Leonardo, and the painting's poor condition necessitated extensive conservation efforts, it garnered significant attention in 2017 when it sold at auction for a record-breaking $450.3 million. This extraordinary sum underscored Leonardo's enduring celebrity and his formidable place in the canon of art history, persisting centuries after his death. Later painting and drawing. After 1507, spanning his time in Milan, Rome, and France, Leonardo da Vinci significantly reduced his painting activities. During his Milan years, he revisited the Leda theme, which had engaged him for a decade, and likely completed a standing version of Leda around 1513. The original work survives only through copies. This painting became a model for the figura serpentine arta, a concept involving a figure constructed from several intertwining views. It influenced classical artists like Raphael, who drew inspiration from it, and had a profound impact on Mannerist artists like Jacopo da Pontormo. The drawings from this period reveal examples of Leonardo's late style, characterized by a curious and enigmatic sensuality. Possibly initiated in Rome and completed in France, the painting of Saint John the Baptist demonstrates Leonardo's radical use of light and shade to achieve sculptural volume and atmosphere. John emerges from darkness into light, appearing to emanate light and goodness. Notably, in capturing the saint's enigmatic smile, Leonardo presents Christ's forerunner as the herald of a mystic oracle. Leonardo's art of expression consciously aimed to bring out the hidden ambiguity of the theme. Consummate drawings from this period, such as the Pointing Lady, circa 1516, serve as further testaments to his undiminished genius. The final manifestation of Leonardo da Vinci's art of expression manifested in his series of pictorial sketches titled Visions of the End of the World, circa 1517–18. In this series, Leonardo's power of imagination, stemming from a blend of reason and fantasy, reached its zenith. He proposed that the immaterial forces in the cosmos, though invisible in themselves, become apparent through the material things they set into motion. What he had observed in the swirling of water, the eddying of air, the shape of a mountain boulder, and the growth of plants now took on gigantic proportions in depictions of cloud formations and rainstorms. Leonardo portrayed the framework of the world as splitting asunder, and even in its destruction, the monstrously beautiful forms of the unleashed elements revealed the same laws of order, harmony, and proportion that presided over the world's creation. These rules governed the life and death of every created thing in nature. Without precedent, these visions stand as the last and most original expressions of Leonardo's art, a culmination where his perception, rooted in sapere vedere, knowing how to see, seems to have reached its full realization. Sculpture of Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci was engaged in sculpting from a young age, as indicated by his own statements and other historical sources. Some small sculptures depicting generals' heads in both marble and plaster, created by followers of Verrocchio, have been tentatively associated with Leonardo. This connection is suggested by a beautiful drawing attributed to him on the same theme. However, the inferior quality of this group of sculptures makes it unlikely to be attributed to Leonardo himself. Unfortunately, no traces remain of the clay models of heads of women and children that, according to Vasari, Leonardo crafted during his youth. Leonardo da Vinci dedicated himself wholeheartedly to two significant sculptural projects, both of which, unfortunately, were never realized. The first project was a colossal bronze equestrian statue for Francesco Sforza, on which he labored from about 1489 to 1494. The second project involved a monument for Marshal Trivulzio, and Leonardo worked on it between 1506 and 1511. Despite the absence of completed works, numerous sketches of these projects exist, with some of the most impressive ones discovered in 1965 in two of Leonardo's notebooks, known as the Madrid Codices, found in the National Library of Madrid. These notebooks showcase the sublimity and almost unreal boldness of Leonardo's conception. Both text and drawings demonstrate his extensive knowledge in the technique of bronze casting, yet they also reveal the utopian nature of the project. Leonardo aimed to cast the horse as a single piece, but the immense dimensions of the steed presented formidable technical challenges. In the end, Leonardo remained uncertain about how to solve this problem. The drawings for Leonardo's unrealized equestrian monuments reveal the grandeur of his sculptural vision. Before creating sketches for these monuments, Leonardo conducted precise studies of the anatomy, movement, and proportions of a live horse. He even contemplated writing a treatise dedicated to the horse. Deliberating between two positions for the horse, galloping or trotting, in both commissions, he ultimately favored the latter. These sketches, marked by the suppressed tension of horse and rider, surpass the achievements of Donatello's statue of Gattamelata, and Verrocchio's statue of Colleoni. They stand as some of the most beautiful and significant examples of Leonardo's art. Undoubtedly, as conceptual ideas, they exerted a powerful influence on the development of equestrian statues in the 16th century. A small bronze statue of a galloping horseman in Budapest closely resembles Leonardo's style. If not directly crafted by his hand, it likely emerged under his immediate influence, possibly by Giovanni Francesco Rustici. According to Vasari, Rustici was an enthusiastic student of Leonardo and received his master's assistance in sculpting a large bronze group, St. John the Baptist teaching, situated over the north door of the baptistry in Florence. There are noticeable traces of Leonardo's influence in John's stance, particularly in the unusual gesture of his upward-pointing hand, as well as in the figure of the bald-headed Levite. While there are few surviving examples of Leonardo's sculptural work, the exploration of motion and volume in this medium undoubtedly influenced his drawing and painting, and vice versa. Architecture. In a letter to Ludovico Sforza, when applying for service, Leonardo described himself as an experienced architect, military engineer, and hydraulic engineer. Throughout his life, he maintained an interest in architectural matters, but his practical impact was primarily in an advisory capacity. On one occasion, during the competition for the cupola of the Milan Cathedral, 1487–90, he contemplated personal involvement, submitting a model. However, when the model was returned to him, he abandoned the idea of direct participation. In other instances, Leonardo's assertion of being a practicing architect relied on sketches for representative secular buildings. These included designs for the palace of a Milanese nobleman, around 1490, the villa of the French governor in Milan, 1507–08, and the Medici residence in Florence, 1515. A notable project was his ambitious plan for the palace and garden of Romorantin in France, 1517–19. In this final project, Leonardo's pencil sketches vividly showcase his mastery of both technical and artistic architectural challenges, providing a perspective view that conveys the grandeur of the envisioned site. What truly distinguishes and immortalizes Leonardo's architectural studies is their comprehensive nature. His exploration extends widely, addressing every type of building problem of his time and even delving into urban planning. Additionally, there is clear evidence of Leonardo's inclination to educate. He aimed to compile his writings on this subject into a comprehensive theory of architecture. This envisioned treatise on architecture, with initial lines found in Codex B at the Institut de France in Paris, a model book covering various types of sacred and profane buildings, was intended to cover the entire spectrum of architecture. It would encompass theories of forms and construction, urbanism, sacred and secular structures, and a compilation of essential individual elements, including domes, steps, portals, and windows. Absolutely. Leonardo's architectural studies provide a remarkably broad and insightful perspective into the architectural achievements of his time. Like a seismograph capturing the pulse of his era, his observations spanned a range of themes and problems, offering a comprehensive view of the architectural landscape. His nearly two-decade association with Bramante and interactions with other distinguished architects placed him at the forefront of significant building projects, allowing him to closely engage with the architectural developments of the High Renaissance. Leonardo's architectural drawings, spanning his entire life, cover a pivotal period from the 1480s to the second decade of the 16th century. This period was crucial for the formulation and maturation of the principles of the High Renaissance style. The fact that Leonardo's studies reflect this developmental process, tracing the evolution of artistic principles during a transformative era, adds distinctive artistic value and exceptional historical significance to his architectural insights. Science. Science of painting. Certainly. Leonardo's promotion of a scientific approach to painting is most evident in his notebook writings categorized under the general title On Painting. These notebooks reveal his intention to compose a treatise on painting, among numerous other planned projects. After inheriting Leonardo's extensive collection of manuscripts in 1519, it is believed that Francesco Melzi, a devoted pupil and heir, extracted relevant passages and organized them into what is now known as the Trattato della Pittura, or the Treatise on Painting attributed to Leonardo. The manuscript, housed in the Vatican Library and referred to as Codex Urbanus, is believed to contain about a quarter of the sources from Melzi's compilation. Unfortunately, it is challenging to gauge how closely Melzi's arrangement aligns with Leonardo's specific intentions, as not all sources have been identified and located within the existing notebooks. Certainly, abridged versions of Melzi's manuscript began to circulate in Italy during the late 16th century. In 1651, the first printed editions were published in both French and Italian in Paris by Raffaello Dufresne, featuring illustrations based on drawings by Nicolas Poussin. However, the initial complete edition of Melzi's text was not available until 1817 when it was published in Rome. There are two prominent modern editions of Melzi's treatise. The first, by Emil Ludwig, was published in 1882 in 3 volumes and included a German translation. The second edition, by A. Philip McMahon, was published in 1956 in 2 volumes and presented a facsimile of the Codex Urbanus alongside an English translation. Certainly, while there are uncertainties about how Melzi presented Leonardo's ideas, the sections in Leonardo's existing notebooks labeled On Painting provide some insight into the treatise Leonardo envisioned. Following the conventions of treatises during his time, Leonardo intended to blend theoretical explanations with practical advice, especially offering guidance to fellow artists. However, his primary objective was to assert that painting is a science, aiming to elevate its status from a mechanical art to one of the liberal arts. In the treatise, Leonardo argued that painting serves as the sole imitator of all the manifest works of nature, emphasizing the crucial role of the eye and strongly advocating for the importance of saper vedere, the art of knowing how to see. This foundational concept underpinned his argument for painting as a legitimate science. In his notebooks, Leonardo vigorously defends painting's superiority over other arts through the paragone, comparison, engaging in a debate that underscores the preeminence of painting. He bases his argument on the function of the senses, contending that the eye deludes itself less than any of the other senses. This assertion implies that the direct observation integral to painting imparts a truthful and scientific quality to the art form. Leonardo further argues that the practical outcomes of science are communicable, and similarly, painting is clear and immediate. Unlike poetry, he contends, painting appeals directly to the visual faculty, offering satisfaction akin to the products of nature itself. Leonardo draws distinctions between painting and sculpture, asserting that the manual labor involved in sculpting diminishes its intellectual aspects. He argues that the illusionistic challenge of painting, involving work in 2 dimensions rather than 3, necessitates a better understanding of mathematical and optical principles than is required of a sculptor. Leonardo highlights the mathematical foundation of painting in his assertion that it is a science. In his notebooks, he delves into the optical functions of the eye, such as darkness, light, body and color, shape and location, distance and closeness, motion and rest, as integral components of painting. He engages in detailed discussions on perspective, providing explanations of perspectival systems grounded in geometry, proportion, and the modulation of light and shade. Through these explorations, Leonardo underscores the scientific and mathematical principles that underpin the art of painting. Leonardo's exploration of perspective in his notebooks extends to various types, including the conventional form based on a single vanishing point, the use of multiple vanishing points, and aerial perspective. Beyond these traditional systems, he delves into concepts like wide-angle vision, lateral recession, and atmospheric perspective. Through words and geometric and analytic drawings, he investigates these ideas, demonstrating how they contribute to the illusion of deep spatial recession. Leonardo also provides practical advice, using both words and sketches, on painting optical effects such as light, shadow, distance, atmosphere, smoke, water, as well as aspects of human anatomy like proportion and facial expressions. Anatomical studies and drawings of Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo's fascination with anatomical studies was part of a broader artistic interest of his time. In Leon Battista Alberti's treatise Della Pittura, 1435, on painting, painters were encouraged to construct a human figure based on its natural form, supported by the skeleton and musculature, before clothing it in skin. While the exact date of Leonardo's initiation into anatomical studies is unknown, it is reasonable to speculate that his interest was sparked during his apprenticeship in Verrocchio's workshop. The environment, influenced by Verrocchio and his neighbor Pollaiuolo, known for their interest in the human body's workings, likely played a role. Leonardo's study of anatomy, initially undertaken for his artistic training, evolved into an independent area of research by the 1490s. Starting with his move to Milan, a center of medical investigation, Leonardo's sharp eye led him to uncover the intricacies of the human body. His interest in the man's instrumental figure deepened, and he sought to comprehend its physical functioning as a creation of nature. Over the next 2 decades, he engaged in practical anatomical work through dissections in Milan, hospitals in Florence and Rome, and collaboration with the physician-anatomist Marcantonio della Torre in Pavia. Leonardo claimed to have dissected 30 corpses in his lifetime. Leonardo's early anatomical studies primarily focused on the skeleton and muscles. However, even in these early stages, he combined anatomical research with physiological investigations. Progressing from the observation of the body's static structure, Leonardo delved into studying the role of different body parts in mechanical activity. This trajectory eventually led him to explore the internal organs, with a particular emphasis on the brain, heart, and lungs as the essential motors of both senses and life. The culmination of his anatomical studies is evident in his famous anatomical drawings, considered among the most significant achievements of Renaissance science. These drawings represent a fusion of natural and abstract representation. Leonardo employed techniques such as representing body parts in transparent layers to provide insight into the organ, using sections in perspective, depicting muscles as strings, indicating hidden parts with dotted lines, and employing a hatching system. These dimostrazioni, or demonstrations, synthesized a multitude of individual experiences from the dissecting table, making the data immediately and accurately visible. Leonardo took pride in the superiority of his drawings over descriptive words. The extensive collection of Leonardo's anatomical studies that has survived laid the groundwork for the basic principles of modern scientific illustration. Notably, during his lifetime, Leonardo kept his medical investigations private. He did not consider himself a professional anatomist, refraining from teaching or publishing his findings in the field of anatomy. Leonardo da Vinci, in collaboration with the mathematician Luca Pacioli, did publish some of his observations on human proportion. Together, they explored the proportional theories of Vitruvius, a Roman architect from the 1st century BCE, as outlined in Vitruvius's treatise De Architectura, on architecture. Leonardo applied the principles of geometry to the configuration of the human body, demonstrating that the ideal proportions of the human figure correspond with the forms of the circle and the square. One of the most iconic illustrations of this theory is known as the Vitruvian Man. In this drawing, Leonardo depicted a man in 2 superimposed positions. The first position shows the man with his feet firmly on the ground and his arms stretched out, fitting within the 4 lines of a square. The second position depicts the man in a spread eagle pose, fitting within a circle. Through this illustration, Leonardo emphasized the geometric harmony and proportionality that he believed existed in the human form, aligning with the principles of both the square and the circle. Leonardo da Vinci envisioned the comprehensive depiction of the human body in his anatomical drawings and the Vitruvian Man as a cosmographia del minor mondo, or cosmography of the microcosm. In this conceptualization, he considered the human body as a microcosm, a miniature representation of the larger universe. Leonardo believed that the functioning of the human body could serve as an analogy for the operations of the cosmos. Leonardo linked the human body to the elements, calling man a lesser world mirroring Earth's composition. He compared the human skeleton to rocks, emphasizing their role as supports of the Earth. He also drew a parallel between lung expansion during breathing and the ebb and flow of oceans. This perspective reflected his holistic approach to understanding the interconnectedness of the human body and the natural world. Mechanics and cosmology. Leonardo da Vinci's observations led him to believe that the study of mechanics, in which he gained expertise as an architect and engineer, provided insights into the workings of nature. Leonardo was not only an artist but also an inventive builder who significantly contributed to the advancement of the principles of mechanics during his lifetime. Leonardo's fascination with mechanics is apparent in the Madrid notebooks from the 1490s and between 1503 and 1505. Rather than offering detailed descriptions of machines, he employed demonstration models to elucidate fundamental mechanical principles. Similar to his anatomical drawings, Leonardo applied clear principles of graphic representation, utilizing stylization, patterns, and diagrams, to precisely illustrate the machinery's functions. This approach facilitated a comprehensive understanding of the objects under consideration. Leonardo da Vinci's talents extended to the field of military engineering. During his time in Milan, he actively engaged in military engineering, and while there are no definitive examples of his work in this area, historical records and documents provide some insights into his contributions. One notable instance is revealed in the Madrid notebooks, which indicate that in 1504, likely commissioned by the Florentine Governing Council, Leonardo was involved in the repair of the fortifications system of the city of Piombino. He stood alongside the Lord of Piombino, and proposed a detailed plan for the overhaul of the fortifications. In addition to his military engineering activities, Leonardo demonstrated expertise in hydraulic engineering. His studies included plans for large-scale canal projects in the Arno region and Lombardy, showcasing his versatile skills and contributions to various fields beyond art and science. Leonardo da Vinci delved into mechanical intricacies, particularly exploring friction and resistance issues. Focusing on components like screw threads, gears, hydraulic jacks, and transmission gears, he emphasized detailed sketches over written descriptions, offering visual insights into their workings. His curiosity about motion and mechanical potential led him to design various machines. Among these designs were differential transmission. Leonardo conceptualized a machine with a differential transmission, a moving fortress that bears a resemblance to a modern tank. Flying machines. Leonardo designed a flying machine, exploring the possibility of human flight. However, the designs faced challenges, especially regarding the lack of an adequate power source for propulsion and lift. Helical air screw. Around 1487, he sketched a design resembling a helical air screw, which bears some resemblance to a modern helicopter. Yet, like his other vehicle designs, it faced the challenge of lacking a viable power source. While many of Leonardo's mechanical designs were ahead of his time and demonstrated his innovative thinking, the practical realization of these ideas was often hindered by the limitations of available technology during the Renaissance. Leonardo da Vinci's exploration of the phenomena of nature reflects his recognition of primal mechanical forces that govern the shape and function of the universe. This recognition is evident in various areas of his studies. Flight of birds. In his studies of bird flight, Leonardo developed his youthful idea of a feasible flying apparatus. His research into the flight of birds delved into the element of air, exploring its physical properties and the laws governing motion and currents. Water studies. Leonardo considered water as the conveyor of nature and conducted extensive research into its physical properties, laws of motion, and currents. His studies went beyond a mere understanding of water's appearance, encompassing its fundamental characteristics. Plant growth and geology. Leonardo's interest extended to the laws of growth in plants and trees, as well as the geological structure of the earth, including hill formations. He sought to understand the underlying principles that govern the natural world. Air currents. Observing air currents, Leonardo examined phenomena such as the flame of a candle or the patterns of a wisp of cloud and smoke. His keen observations contributed to his comprehensive understanding of the dynamics of air. In his studies, Leonardo's drawings uniquely represented natural phenomena, breaking them down into component parts like water traces or whirlpool eddies. This approach combined analytic and synthetic visions, preserving the total picture while highlighting specific details from his experiments. Leonardo's ability to merge observation, analysis, and artistic representation showcased his exceptional understanding of the mechanical forces shaping the natural world. Leonardo as artist-scientist. As the 15th century turned into a new time, people stopped following certain teachings, and they started to really like learning about human culture. Leonardo da Vinci was part of a smart group of people who thought in a modern way. He believed that artists could share accurate information by looking closely at things. In a time when people thought creating art was like how God made the world, Leonardo said it could work the other way around too. He thought art could help us understand the secrets of creation. Leonardo thought of painting as a way to change the way the artist thinks, saying, "The mind of the painter is transformed into a copy of the divine mind." He used art to show many different things like animals, plants, landscapes, and more. He saw being an artist as a special job, and he explored nature deeply to find its secrets. Leonardo had a big dream of sharing knowledge like an encyclopedia, even though it had some old ideas. Still, his research was a big deal in the new way of thinking. He liked using experience a lot, and this changed how people did science. He watched and thought about the natural world, making a connection between science and art. This set the stage for more discoveries. Leonardo really wanted to learn a lot and tried hard in languages, science, math, philosophy, and history. His big collection of books shows how much he wanted to know. Even though he wanted to know many things, he always believed in seeing things for himself. This, along with his natural talent, helped him create a special way of understanding things that mixed art and science. When we look at what Leonardo left behind, arguing about if he finished his works doesn't matter much. Each thing he made shows how smart he was. People still talk about his life, like if he was gay, what he believed, or if he was a vegetarian. No matter what we focus on, Leonardo's impact is still strong. His influence is always there, making people interested in him. This shows how timeless and many-sided his contributions to humanity are. As we conclude our journey into the life and mind of Leonardo da Vinci, we've ventured into a realm where artistry and science beautifully converge. His insatiable curiosity, meticulous observations, and unparalleled creativity have left an indelible mark on history. Leonardo's legacy endures, reminding us of the boundless possibilities when imagination, intellect, and artistic expression intertwine. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of Leonardo da Vinci's enduring influence. If you enjoyed this dive into history, please give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more enlightening episodes. Until next time, this has been a quick note.